Alright guys, I'm here doing a brake job on the schoolie. I got the wheel off. One thing that you guys might want to get for your bus or RV that's mandatory for me is a torque multiplier. It's a 1 in 58 drive, so every 58 times you turn the handle, the actual socket side turns 1 revolution. It puts out 5,000 pounds of torque, so you can take off any lug nuts, tractor trailer, no matter what it is, with one hand. It's mandatory to have. It allows you to take these things off without having to jump up and down on a breaker bar. It's like amazing how it works. So grab one of those, they're cheap. This was 50 bucks. Great to have on your bus. It also comes with the socket you need to take off your lug nuts, and it also comes with the bud stud socket to take off your rear inner dually wheel. So really good set to have. It makes working on tractor trailers and buses a breeze. Okay, so with that said, my calipers and pads on this schoolie were worn to shit. They were binding up. They weren't allowing my wheels to spin freely, and they were getting warm while I was driving. So I'm not going to drive cross country like that. I'm ready to leave, as you guys already know. But I'm doing things like this right now to make sure that I'm not going to have any problems on the road. So here's new pads. You know, they're heavy duty, original AC Delco OEM parts. I put this extra brake disc quiet on only the outside pad because I had it, and I'd rather just use it and get rid of it than carry it around with me inside the bus. Normally I don't really use any brake disc quiet on pads this big and heavy duty equipment. The pads are so heavy that they don't really make noise and vibrate. They just lock into place, but I had it. If you do have this, do not use it on the inside pad that contact the area with the pistons. It will collect rocks. It's really gummy. Yeah, it's just going to collect rocks and dust and grind into your piston boots, the rubber piston boots, and it's going to end up causing a failure down the road. So if you use it, only on the outside pad. All right, so once you get all of this jacked up and you make sure your bus is secure, I'm using a log and a 12-ton jack, 50-50. The weight is 50% on the log, 50% on the jack. The back wheels, the front wheels, everything is chalked. The bus is not going to move. The parking brake is locked up. Everything is good on my end. I checked it, double checked it, and I made sure that I checked this log, and then it's a brand new, hardwood log. So it's a real heavy duty. And it took all the weight. I made sure that it could take all the weight of the bus, but even still, I still jacked back up with the jack a little bit to put most of the weight on the jack. This is good. It's solid. It's not going to go anywhere. I can't stress this enough. It's a 30,000 pound bus. This thing will squash you like a pancake. If this bus falls on you and your foot gets cut underneath there, your foot is coming off. It's not getting smushed. It's not gonna like you drop the hammer on it. It's coming off. Your toes are coming off. So be careful. All right, so once you get this jacked up and the lug nuts are all removed, you come inside here. The caliper's on here. It's only held on by one bolt. Once you take off this bolt, there's a pin in here that's connected to a spring. You just hammer it out the back, and then the caliper will flip up. Only it's not going to flip up very easy because there's going to be a bead of rust on the edge of this. So take a hammer and hammer it from the bottom with a flathead screwdriver, pushing on a part of the caliper, and it'll pop over that and you'll get it off. Once you get that off, lay it somewhere secure. Like I lay mine across the link right there, and then lay it over here. None of the wires, the lines have stress on them. Do not put stress on these lines. These calipers weigh 50 pounds, roughly. I mean, they will take your line right off the bus, and you'll turn a simple brake job into a nightmare. These brakes are really easy to change. I really like disc brakes, hydraulic brakes. People say that, get air brakes, get air brakes. These things are the most reliable if you take care of them. If you take care of these are so easy to work on. The problem is most people get to this point, they take out this thing, they knock out this pin, they flip up the caliper, they take out the old pads, they pop new pads in, and they're done with it. The only problem is you see all this pitting right here, that was scaly rust. This was all rust. None of this was shiny. I had to chisel all this out. All inside here had rust, so when I spin the rotor right here, it was grinding all inside there. Same thing with here, all scaly rust. I went through with a hammer and chiseled all of the loose rust out of there. Take your time and do the cleaning is what separates a good brake job from a shit brake job. If you don't take time to polish everything and clean everything, your pads are not going to slide. You're going to be right back in the same situation you were in, 6 months down the road. These pads last a long time. Sometimes this bus for a schoolie, these pads will probably last in the rest of the time I have this bus. You're not going to be driving this bus around that much, and if you do, these pads are heavy duty. They're not going to wear out for about 5 or 6, 7 years, 8 years. So make sure you do it right the first time, so you're not having to go back in here. And even then, a year from now, I'm gonna have to take this up and I'll take all this back apart and I'll go in here and clean up rust again, make sure they slide smooth again. Just because you have pad life left doesn't mean the pads are still good and able to slide inside their brackets. So all right, once you get this off and you pop that pin out, you take the caliper off, you lay it somewhere safe, you take those old pads out of there, go in through here with a chisel, clean everything up, all the loose scaly rust, and your hub should spin freely. If your hub's not spinning like that, you have something binding it up. You hear that sound in mine? I have one little tiny piece of rust in between the rotor and this piece of metal right here. I won't stop until that piece of rust is out and it's not making that little annoying sound. But that's the only thing holding this thing up at this point right now. Just that little piece of rust that flaked off in there, just locked in between that. But when I took this off, this wheel would not even spin. You couldn't do this with this wheel, not even a little bit. It wouldn't spin like this. And you're losing gas mileage, and you're making all your brake parts in here get hot. If you're going to be going up and down mountains, it's just causing extra heat. You're losing brake, you're losing your brakes faster going down the mountains if you're getting extra heat that you shouldn't have. So you want all of this stuff to be spinning freely. So when you use your brake, it's only the brakes contacting the actual rotor that's causing heat. You don't want all this extra crap in here causing heat. So like I said, you should do that. Now what I do is once I get all this stuff out, I go in through here, you can see it's all nice and polished. I go in through here with a flathead screwdriver and I spin this really fast and I'll grind all this rust out because the outer pad arches with the curvature of this hub. And all this rust is going to be binding into the bottom of your pad, also causing resistance. So grind all of this, get all that rust out of there. If you take a grinder and you just grind this out, the grinder spins, clockwise, so it's going to spin the hub automatically. So I just hold the grinder like right here and the hub just starts spinning, and I'll just grind and grind and grind until it gets nice and, not grind, but polish and polish and polish until it'll get nice and smooth instead of like all of this scaly rust that used to be there. That way when I put the pads back on and this all rotates, there won't be chunks of rust grinding into the bottom of the pads. So yeah, everything's really heavy on this bus. It's not that hard to work on. You just have to be very careful. The wheel is like 150 pounds. So just get it up, roll it out to the side. Clean as much of this rust off of here as possible. So like I said, I'll go over it one more time. Once you get this up, you get the lug nuts off, you take all this off, you're gonna have this caliper is going to be on top of here. You take off this one nut right here, and then you bang. This rail is right here. You bang this out, and that's what's locking in the caliper. Once you bang this out the back, it unlocks the caliper, and you can bang the caliper from the bottom, and it'll pop off. That's it. That's the only thing holding it on. That nut and that rail. And go in here and get all of these contact surfaces smooth. Your caliper slides on these surfaces right here. This edge and that edge. That's it. Your brake pads slide on this edge and that edge. And that's it. The only problem is all of this rust that was flaky and expanded, 4 times its size was holding the pad in there. The pad has to be able to, go inside and be squeezed against the rotor without having all that resistance on it. See, like right there, it's good. It's nice and free in there right now. They weren't like that. It was so rusted on the bottom of all of this stuff. It was all pushing against this bottom plate, and it was not making the pad be able to, loosen off the rotor. So go inside there, take off the caliper, go inside there, chisel out all this rust, all this crap, get it all out of here, polish everything nice, like so it's down to brand new metal again. I'm still not done with this. I'm still working on it, but I'm making this video real quick for you guys. Polish all of this whole thing. Get all of this rust off of here because you don't want to have to be coming back in here again in 2 months. Get all that rust off of there. Get all of the rust off of here. Get all this crap off. Make sure that this is spinning freely before you put everything back together. When you take those pads out, go inside. Do the same thing. The inside of all this caliper, polish everything. Get all around the boots, clean everything, check your boots, make sure you don't have any rips in them. You use, this and the old brake pad to compress the pistons. So you lay the old brake pad against the pistons and you put this on there and you just twist it and it'll compress the pistons in. you know, do that, but make sure you don't have any rips in the boots, because if you have rips in the boots, you're getting water inside there. Even these things have plastic pistons, so they can tolerate a little bit of that. But you know, if you have metal pistons or anything like that, you're going to pit out the pistons, and then the pits that are inside the pistons are going to damage the inner rubber seals, and that's when your brake pads start not working. They start binding up. So on this, I'm doing a full caliper rebuild because the boots were just torn to hell, and they were causing binding. So you could see this one was all torn, causing binding in there. There's a metal, it's all metal inside here except for the boot, so it was kind of cockeyed and it wasn't allowing the pistons to retract. Plus all of this was all rusted super bad, and it was just pushing weight against the rotor, and all of this was pushing against the rotor. I could barely spin this. I was like spinning it and chunks of rust were falling out the bottom right here. Chunks of rust were falling out. So I went through here and I polished all of this. Just polish it with the grinder, go through everything, all of these surfaces, all inside the caliper, reassemble everything back together. When you do reassemble it, don't put lube all inside these ears and inside here. All it does is collect rocks. Your pads will slide a lot better if it's just on a nice polished surface like this. You can put lube on the guide, that when you slide that guide back in here, and a little bit on this edge, but don't overdo it. That lube, all it does is collect dust and rocks, especially if you're using that really sticky purple ceramic stuff that's good for 2000 degrees. It's good stuff if you use it properly, but most people glob it on and they put it on the wrong surfaces. Do not put anything on the backside of your pad that's going to contact the piston and the boot area. All it's going to do is collect rocks. It's going to rip your piston boots. It's going to be like, you know, your rubber piston boots going in and out on sandpaper. So keep all of this inside area clean and free of all the grease and grimy, nasty stuff that's going to collect dust. Only put grease on the outside edges right here, and that'll keep your brake pads sliding freely for a very long time. You don't have to worry about any of that crap collecting rocks and shit. So yeah, that's what it is, guys. When I'm done with this wheel will spin nice and freely. The brake pads will be good to go, and they'll last for a very long time. And that's what it is.